welcome back to Unofficial Leafs Talk. Leafs lose 3-2 to the Sharks in overtime in a game that they pretty much played, really well against. I think they just had, 59 minutes of great effort, and the last minute or so is where they lost the game, basically. And that's a tough one. I really think they played great. They played with a lot of hunger and authority that we don't often, see them play, but it just the game just kind of got away from them there in the last little bit. It's tough. Klingberg, of course, former Maple Leaf, comes back, scores with a minute or so left. Of course, it's always the former Maple Leafs too. Ryan Reeves earlier with a goal that was called back. I don't even know if it hit him, but that's what they said. It always seems to be the former Leafs that come back to bite you in the ass, which is kind of unfortunate. But you know what? They get a point. Could have had two, but at least they get a point. Move up in the standings a little bit, which is, it's better than getting nothing. But it's tough, especially when they're in the playoff hunt here, and when it comes time, for spring, and it's with how the division is being so bunched up. Like you look back at the season, and there's going to be a lot of these games this year. At least I think, where they just easily could have had 2 points, and they just keep giving 1 point away every couple games, and just it's going to add up over the course of the season, and that's a real big possibility that they miss the playoffs or at least get a bad seeding or whatever because they just gave up too many soft goals, or just didn't quite have a full 60-minute effort there in quite a few games across the season. um I don't know. It's tough. First thing I want to talk about Matthews is, you know what? I thought he played really good tonight. I thought he played with some hunger, with some real speed tonight. Like he's on pucks, but he's not playing with as much ferociousness as he played tonight. He was really draping himself over guys, getting towards the net, just poking pucks away. Like he looked like he had a lot of energy tonight. Partly, I wonder if that's because when he plays against a young star like Macklin Celebrini or even Bedard, or sometimes even Crosby or Ovechkin, especially McDavid too, actually. But especially like with the young guys, I feel like he kind of gets fired up for the game. I don't know if it's just because he's playing against a young star that it sort of takes like the spotlight away from him. Not that he wants the spotlight, but he just seems to almost play with a chip on his shoulder, like he's got something to prove. Like the young guys are good, but hey, I'm still here. I'm still Austin Matthews. I scored 69 goals. I got a lot of points. I'm still a superstar in this league. Don't forget about me. That's how I feel he kind of views the game. So maybe we'll see in the future. But Nylander too. Being moved down to the third line there with Josh and Wah. People were saying that he was not going to play well. It was kind of up in arms about how he was going to perform, and I'm not sure. We'll have to wait till a couple more games goes by, but I definitely think that he showed up tonight for sure. Didn't make the best play in overtime there, and it seemed to get a little sloppier towards the third and definitely in the overtime. But he definitely had a lot of plays tonight where he was on it, set up the first goal there. I just think that he's had a tough couple games, but I think that he's getting to a point where you kind of got to push him a little bit. I think he gets complacent sometimes with who he plays with, and that he doesn't necessarily have much of a try factor. But when you put him down like that and you kind of really tell him like, hey, you got to start producing again. You got to start at least look like you're trying, and tonight he did. He definitely had a little fire underneath him tonight. So it was nice to see, but I need to see that more. I need to see a more consistent effort like that. Like, you can have a bad game here and there, one or two, but when you start creeping on that 3, 4, 5 game mark, that's when the coach has to make a change and either put you down or just mix up the lines a little bit so that you just get a little more production or a different look. And I think it worked for him tonight. I don't know if he's going to stay down there in the next couple games, but it's something that I I would leave it. I would leave it for the next couple games just to see how it plays out. If it looks the same, it looks the same. If not, then maybe you move him back up or switch his line mates. But I think for tonight, the main goal of what he was trying to do, it actually worked out, which was nice. Let's go to the penalty shot now too. I don't know what league I'm watching where the officials call that a penalty shot. I understand Riley taps his glove for a second, but I have seen much worse plays, where the player is either tripped and, it's puck first or not, or a lot of different circumstances where it's not a penalty shot. So for Riley to come down there tonight and just do a slight little touch on the hands there and then lift the stick, I don't think that's a penalty shot. Fine, but I was a little annoyed by that. Looking at that, going, it's not a penalty shot call. That's a penalty for hooking, if you will. But I think that's just a good hockey play in general. I didn't like it. I really didn't. Thankfully, the hockey gods agreed with me and Hildeby saved it. But no, I didn't like that at all. Another thing too, Cowan and Robertson. That was something tonight that I thought was pretty interesting. I don't think we've seen them play together a lot, but it's two young guys. One is more of a star than the other. Robertson's been around the block a little bit, but I really hope that they stay together more. That line had some chemistry tonight. Cowan was cooking. Robertson was doing Robertson scratch and score things, even though he didn't score, but he was around the puck. He looked good. They had a lot of chemistry. They were a lot of give and goes tonight. They were hungry on the pucks, a lot of good little passes, and they were just creating a lot of havoc tonight for the Sharks. I really thought it was something that needs to be explored more in the coming games because I don't know. I think it's one of those things where the young guys play good together. It just seemed to have a lot of chemistry tonight that I wouldn't have thought that it would, but it looked great. So maybe it was just a good game for them, but I definitely would keep that together in the future just to see where it goes. I think that you're looking for sparks in this lineup where, it can be a little bit dull, and that was a highlight of tonight. Definitely seeing that. An odd thing in this game too. There was I think I counted 6 sticks that broke tonight, 4 of which were at horrible times. It's just one of those games you see a stick break here and there, but I mean to have 6 of them tonight was just pretty unusual, pretty weird, and kind of a funny thing that happened in the game to just kind of break up some plays there. But it was just mayhem there. It was like toothpicks snapping all over the ice. Second period too, Leafs first power play. And look, this is another problem that I have too. Line one for the power play: Riley, Nylander, Matthews, Tavares, and Nyes. No movement whatsoever. Everyone's kind of just skating 10 feet or so, handling it around, pass it to one guy, pass it to the next. There's just no movement. There's no energy. It's just dead. And then you get the second unit on and they're whipping it around, and at least they're making it look dangerous. I don't understand how you can have basically $50 million on the ice and they look like they're peewee players out there who have no idea what to do. I mean, I want to see it changed. I want to see it moved. Do something different here with these guys. Maybe, power play one's got to be power play never. Get some different guys and move it around. I don't think they're literally dead last in the league in power play at this point. It's just I don't know what is left in this lineup here that's worth trying anymore. Just start with the second unit at this point. I don't think there's any point at all. With that being said, the second power play, Nylander, gets some time and space. Perfect pass over to Matthews, one timer, beautiful, typical Matthews goal. And it's great to see, but it's you got to do that more than just once every 20 power plays. It puts them up, but it's frustrating that can't be a way more common occurrence with a team with this much skill on it. At that point, okay, it's 2-0. Sharks score. Orlov makes it 2-1. Third period, OEL gets hurt, which is exactly what this team does not need. Hopefully, I honestly don't think it looked that serious. I think it was just he twisted something, might be out, probably just for the rest of that game there. Hopefully he comes back the next one. He's a huge offensive defenseman that this team needs on a constant basis. So I just really hope that he's not that hurt, but who knows with this team, they don't report shit at this point for injuries. It could be 2026 by the next time we see him at this point. Um Third period, Leafs on the penalty kill there, kill it off. That's one thing that's nice. I mean, if at least if your power play sucks, at least your penalty kill can be good. It's nice not having both of those be awful. So at least that's kind of keeping them alive here in a lot of games. That point still 2-1. Sharks score as I said before, but it's offside. And yeah, the Leafs video coaches definitely deserve some raises for sure. That they're pretty good at catching the offsides now, so that saves the Leafs. And then Hildeby later on in the period too, with that kind of behind the back world save, whatever that was, which was great too. Keeps the game out of reach there for the time being. But it's still, I mean, look, as great of a save that is, you can't have your goaltender. I mean, sometimes you can, but Hildeby's playing out of his mind in these last couple games here. That's not going to last forever. He's giving you basically a miracle on ice here, and the Leafs are kind of throwing it away. They're not taking advantage of the goaltending that they have. Yes, they've definitely won, a couple games now, but it could be better. They could be a lot more defensively solid. Give up 30 shots plus again. And it's like you got to limit that to 25. Every night it's 30 shots plus or at least, around that mark. And I don't know if it's just the defensive woes because of the Tanev being out, Carlo, it's not coming back. Like it's just it's tough to say what it is, but they got to do a better job at just limiting the shots. And I feel like I say it every time I do this, but it's true. You're not going to win a lot of games this season if you're getting up 30 shots every single game. No matter how good your goaltender is, it's just not going to happen. Klingberg ties it up too with 1:25 left. As I said, former Leaf. And I don't know. I always feel like when that happens to the Leafs, it's just definitely a deflating moment, as it would be for every team. But in that specific instance, it's just like you kind of know that they're not going to win that game. And in overtime, which is a major point that I want to talk about here, is, Leafs start with Nylander and Matthews, which I think is interesting. I think those two have decent chemistry, but I would like to see them somewhat, separated in overtime because they try to get too cute with it. And that's what we saw again tonight. They just seem to not really have any urgency. They just kind of skate around with it, pass it back and forth. Okay, you go in. Well, I'll circle around. All right, you're tired. Okay, you go change. I'll circle back. They're almost waiting for one or the other to just do some miracle 1-on-3 dash and get it in. There's no real, forcible play in the ozone there. It's something that personally I would separate them. Maybe you go Matthews and Nyes and Nylander and Tavares, or Nylander and Domi, or it's something. I just it's not working with those two because they get too cute tonight. Nylander makes a horrible turnover in the ozone there. Gives over possession and then skates off slowly for a change there, and then they get possession back, but then Matthews, again, trying to be too cute with it, goes in, does a horrible low percentage chance play where you're going to cut into the middle of the ice there and deke out two guys, who are just on your hip there. And of course it gets turned over. He's dead tired. Can't back check hard enough, which I don't blame him for. I get you've been out there forever, but you shouldn't be out there forever is the other point too. And then, they pass it over, get the one-timer, and then it goes in. And it's just, I don't know. It's one of those things where, yes, your stars can win you the game, but you need a little more grit. You need a little more forceful play because you put the top six guys out there, and they try to get too cute with it. It doesn't go anywhere, and you've lost several games like this in overtime now because you're not getting actual any aggressive play in overtime. As I said, your goalie can win you a lot of games, but when you just kind of hang him out to dry there in overtime, there's not much you can do. So give credit where credit is due. Sharks have been a fun watch. I was thinking of going to the game tonight and I didn't because I just thought the last couple games with the Sharks have led to shootout losses, and this one felt like another one that was going to be. And I was almost right. Overtime loss, but still close enough. So I don't know. That's a tough one. I guess we'll wait till Saturday night to really see how this plays out. But still happy with the effort. Fun game to watch, So I guess I can't complain too much. But if you're tuning in, thanks a lot. I know this was a little bit longer tonight, but there was a lot of notes to go over on this one. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next game. Cheers.